whoever's listening, can you guys say hello to us so we know who's there? And Debbie, go ahead and run with it. I'm ready when you are.
Sure. Carmen, thanks so much. We are talking about sleep today. How often do you wake up in the morning and say, wow, that was a great night of sleep? And how often do you wake up in the morning and say, it's going to be a long day?
Yeah.
So my friend and health coach, Carmen Hunter, she has been a health coach for over a decade and is the founder for the Institute of Functional Health Coaching, has graciously agreed to talk to us about one of our most favorite topics, sleep. So Carmen, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, sleep is, some people say that food is the most important thing we have to focus on. And, you know how I feel that stress, I believe, is one of the most important things, if not the top
Absolutely.
thing we need to focus on. Well, what does stress affect? It affects our sleep 100%. It is one of the biggest things that affects how we sleep is how we think, right?
Mm-hmm.
I like to start out with talking about sleep by saying, first and foremost, the best way to regulate sleep is to find your circadian pattern for each person, right?
So
So,
how do you do that?
well, and this is there's a big myth around the idea that people are night owls, right? You've heard me say before, and some of this is going to be repetitious for people who follow me, but no one is a night owl. We are all human beings that were created the same way. We were created to wake up when the sun comes up, so I like to tell people, when you're trying to regulate your circadian pattern and get back to the the origin of what it feels like to be a normal person, wake up when God woke us up. So when the sun comes up, our cortisol rises, and that starts us for the day. And our circadian pattern follows the sun, kind of. You can kind of think about how the sun moves throughout the day, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
brightest in the morning. We're most awake in the morning if our cortisol is high. And then as the day goes on, our cortisol starts to drop and gets ready for melatonin, which is our sleep hormone, to come in at night and take over. The problem when we get dysregulated and our circadian pattern is off is that we can flip this thing upside down or get it a little bit dysregulated. So when I tell people, let's take a look at your circadian pattern. Let's look at what time are you getting up in the morning? How close to the sun rising are you waking up and exposing your eyes to the sun? And I mean, I don't know about you, but there's been days where I'm like, sun's been up for about 2 hours and I'm just now rising, right? So,
Yeah.
sometimes we miss that window to get that cortisol kicking right when it should be, right? And then as the day goes on, I typically force myself to expose my eyes to the sun, get up, get my cortisol rising, go on. But then I pay special attention to the way the sun moves around my home during the day, to the point where I'll shut curtains. I'll dim lights to amber lighting. I'll light
Mm-hmm.
candles, and I'll start to kind of wind my own energy down as the day starts to come to a close. Which, if you talk to some people, you'll notice that a lot of people like to amp up as the day ends, right? Go out to a bar, go out with friends, go get a workout in at the end of the day. And what that really does is it sets you up to kind of keep nudging that cortisol to stay high when melatonin is trying to come in and bring it down. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we live out in the boonies. We don't have neighbors really close by, and we don't have any curtains. And people think I'm crazy, but it really helps because I'm waking up when it's getting light. It's when we wake up. It just starts off the day naturally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I have darkening shades on my curtains just because we do have a lot of nighttime lights.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a daylight light next to my bed during the winter and fall that I just, believe it or not. And I know some of us, we turn the lights on and sometimes we go like this. Oh God. I turn it on and I just go like this. Oh God, I don't necessarily like it, but immediately I'm wide awake when I expose
Mm-hmm.
my eyes to that light. So during the summer, in the summertime, I'll open the blinds instead. But it's key. I mean, I envy you being out in the boonies when it's pitch dark. We were at a cabin last weekend and it was so quiet and so dark. I was out in a matter of seconds when we turned the lights out.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Proof that it works.
it does. So we start getting in touch with our circadian rhythms, but what else? What other things can we do?
Well, what other things we can do is, first and foremost, we need to stop starting our day by looking at our phones. That cannot be the first thing that we do. It's that artificial blue light is very damaging to us in general. But to start our day, you know what? Let's go back, Debbie, because I loved how you opened this up. Is how many times do we step out of bed or open our eyes and go, "Oh, I didn't sleep well," or "Oh, this is going to be a long day." For me, regulating my sleep and regulating my mood around sleep and my hormones has to do with how I think about how my night was, right? So even if I didn't get enough rest, I might start my day by saying, I got just enough rest to have a productive day today. Or,
Okay.
I'm well rested for the things that I need to accomplish today. So a lot of it has to do with our attitude about sleep. Are we starting ourselves out with, doom and gloom? Are we starting ourselves out by saying, you know what, this is what I'm dealing with today. This is what I have to move forward. And then we get up and we get started, right? So the way that we think about our sleep has a lot to do with how our day unfolds. The other thing that I always say too is this: is hormones have everything to do with how we rest at night. Many people, let's go back to melatonin for a moment. Many people are taking melatonin at night thinking that that's going to help them sleep. When in reality, what that can do is it can stop your own melatonin production, your own natural production of the hormone melatonin, and actually have the opposite effect.
Really?
I had a client recently that had been on melatonin for over a decade, and she hasn't slept in over a decade, and she's not, she's younger. As we get older, we need more. All right. We're going to need a little bit of assistance with that melatonin, but she's a younger woman and has not been able to sleep. And so what we did is we worked on weaning off of that melatonin and letting her own natural cycle kick back in by following a circadian pattern, changing her attitude about the way we saw ourselves in the morning in our day, and then easing down on that melatonin dosage. I think she was up to like 5 milligrams per night. And then dialing that sleep clock back a little bit, even by 5, 10, 15 minutes, where we're getting into a normal sleep time, right? 1, 2 o'clock in the morning is not normal sleep time. Either is 12 o'clock. So now she's completely off the melatonin, has been sleeping better than she slept in over a decade. So we need to remember that melatonin is not something to play with. It's not just a supplement like an aspirin or a Aleve or something like that, right? A pill. It is an actual hormone that can affect your normal production of hormones. So really important to note that as well.
So do you have ideas? How can we support the production? What can we do to support the production of our own personal melatonin so we can benefit from it?
Yeah. So cortisol, first and foremost, is the enemy of melatonin, as we've already established, right? So the first thing we have to think about is, how much stress are we dealing with? Mental, emotional, physical stress. How much are we dealing with? How are we looking at it? How are we perceiving our day to be? So as you go through the day, it tends to, let's use women as for an example, right? So women tend to get a little bit more, I would say, anxious, frenetic, and energized as the day comes to a close. The kids are coming home, lunch bags need to be unpacked, laundry needs to be done, homework started. Maybe our spouse or partner is coming home from a long day at work. We need to get supper on the table. The dryer is dinging, and God forbid we have an actual job that we're working at the same time, right? So we are actually kind of our own worst enemy when it comes to the balance of those hormones, because we are increasing our own cortisol by the thoughts that we think about the tasks that are ahead of us. So for women and men too, if you're in this position, one of the first things we do is we say, let's look at this. Let's look at this stressful situation that we're in, and let's change the way we see and react to it, right? So maybe we think, yay, my kids are coming home. I've missed them so much today. Yes, the lunch bags can wait. Oh, the laundry is not important. What do we see as an urgent or emergent thing? That alone is going to help to keep our cortisol levels balanced and at least in some regular pattern, so that melatonin has an actual chance when nighttime rolls around, right? And then one of my favorite things, as hard as this is to say, can you just put away all the blue light, or at least put on some blue blockers, and then past 8:30 at night, is it possible to put that phone down, put the computer away, even maybe turn the TV off? I know that's asking a lot, but to at least allow, again, because that keeps your cortisol levels up. That will keep your cortisol going up and your melatonin suppressed. So, what are the things that constantly keep us going and keep us motivated? That's our cortisol. That's these activities. And how can we do less of those as we ease into dark? Yeah.
I mean, for years, all I've heard about is, well, time management's one thing, but stress management, manage your stress. And but the whole idea of changing how we look at look at the stressors, that's the stress perception. That's really a new way for me to be looking at stress.
Yeah. And I think, I did a webinar on this a couple of weeks ago, because I feel like it's a lot of pressure to tell people, You really need to manage your stress. You really need to reduce some of the things you're responsible for, because what that does for me is it makes me more anxious.
Absolutely.
I mean, are you kidding me? What do you want me to get rid of? You come and be me for a day, and then when you're done with that one day, you tell me what you'd get rid of, right? So that'll get your defenses up, right? Which increases our stress. So when we can actually get real about what's important and what deserves that reaction of, busyness or freneticism, then we can get real with ourselves. I mean, I've left laundry in the dryer for 2 days before and been like, oh my gosh, I forgot there was laundry in there. A year ago, I would have been the person that's like, the minute it dings, get it out, fold it, put it away. So so I think dropping some of our perfectionistic expectations and tendencies about ourselves can be really helpful as well to adapt our stress hormone response that keeps us from sleeping at night.
So we learn to make some adjustments try to adjust our cortisol levels by our mindset, how we perceive what's going on, what's important, what's really important, not just what everybody says is important. That helps take our cortisol down, helps our melatonin be more naturally elevated. What about what we eat, what we drink, and patterns with that? What are your thoughts about those things?
Yeah. So, here's the thing, there's been so many different trends around food, and there's trends around how to sleep better. You need to don't eat 2 hours before you go to bed, or yes, have a snack of carbohydrates and fat before you go to bed, or your cortisol will spike in the night. There's all kinds of different ideas around how we should sleep. So anytime that someone says, what's the best way to do this? The question should always go back to asking yourself, what do I feel is the best thing for me? So there have been times in my life where, I've eaten late at night and it's kept me up, right? Maybe I had too much sugar before bed, a couple glasses of wine late at a party or something like that. And then you're up with hot flashes at night and you're like, oh gosh, here comes the alcohol processing or whatever. But then I've also had nights, back in the past before I had a grip on sleep, where I would wake up at 3 a.m. like, why am I awake? There is nothing going on here. Whereas my blood sugar would spike in the night, pushing cortisol up, which suppresses melatonin, which wakes you up for the day. And so a time frame to think about this for people would be between, I would say, 1 and 3, sometimes 2 and 4. The window can shift for some people. But if you're waking up and you don't know why, and you didn't, have any reason, late at night, you went to bed at a regular time, but you're just being awake in the middle of the night, a good idea is to try maybe a slice of apple or 2 with some almond butter, or just combine a little bit of carbohydrate with some fat. Try to keep that sugar in check so that it's not kicking your cortisol up in the middle of the night, pushing your melatonin down and making you feel like you should go out for a run at 3 o'clock in the morning. Right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's not happening here anytime, but that's the upside point.
But I've been through that as well. So another important thing I think that's a good tip for people, about sleep is when you wake up at night, don't worry about being awake. So what's one of the first things that you think when you wake up at night, when you know you shouldn't be up and getting ready for the day? At least for me, it was, oh my gosh, I'm awake. Okay, why am I awake? I have to be up in 4 hours. I have a full day tomorrow. Oh my gosh, I've got to go to sleep. Am I awake because of this? We go through this thing and we get our mind in this ongoing, spinning cycle, which elevates our cortisol, pushes down our melatonin, and then we're up. The next night when we go to bed, we go first thing in our head, I wonder if I'm going to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning again. Oh my gosh, I better get some sleep. Oh my gosh, it's 11 and I'm still awake. So poof, there we go again, pushing down melatonin, raising cortisol. So we have so much more power than we think we do, and it starts right here. It starts right here. So let's just kind of recap for a second. If we can see things differently, and that's from the minute we wake up in the morning thinking, oh my God, I didn't get enough sleep. Can we change that to, I've had enough rest to get the things done I need to get done today? And if that's possible, then how can we go through the day accommodating with circadian pattern, moving through the day, getting prepared for sleep, and then prepping ourselves before we go to bed at night, not to have those stressful thoughts in our minds. That makes sense?
Absolutely. So it's a whole series of things. There's not it's lifestyle choices. And I love the fact that you're talking about it's choices that we can make to empower ourselves to be better and feel better. It's not turning to medication. It's not turning to, other fads or whatnot. It's just choices that we can make and be empowered ourselves for that.
Right. And I always say, we have to trust ourselves more than we trust outside resources and outside, um, people to tell us what's best for ourselves. I think that's one thing that we make a big mistake at, is we reach for, the first supplement that helps you sleep, or the sleeping pill, or one of my favorite things that people are selling right now is this thing that you wear, or this thing that sits next to your bed. There's two of them that tells you how you're sleeping. Or a watch that says, well, you got 8 hours of sleep last night, but you may wake up feeling like you got 2. We've got to remember, we are the expert on ourselves. We know what's best for ourselves. So if you feel a certain way, pay attention to that feeling, and then ask yourself, get honest with yourself. Was I up a little late watching Game of Thrones for the 3rd time? Maybe, right?
Maybe.
Was it a little bit elevating to my cortisol to watch that battle? Maybe.
Right before you go to bed. Yeah,
exactly.
absolutely.
Exactly. So get honest with yourselves about that. Look at, how you're living your life with your schedule. Are you putting your phone down and then going, just one more look at 11 o'clock before I go to bed, right? And then we can't forget about the environment of our sleep environment, right? Is it dark? Is it cool? Do you need a white noise to shut out any of the noise that's going on outside in the outside world? Do you have a cat that likes to sleep on your pillow like I used to, and I didn't sleep for almost 13 years because of that?
Oh gosh.
I know. So what's your environment like? Is it soothing, and is it a place that is conducive to really good, solid sleep? So there's so much that we can do. I mean, we could do 3 hours on sleep, but those are some of the basic things a lot of people don't think about.
Absolutely. I see, Jacob, you've joined us. I muted you, but do you have any questions you'd like to ask? Not to put you on the spot at all or anything.
Yeah.
Thanks for checking in. No, I was just catching, and I missed the first part of this, but I love that you shared that we are the experts on our own sleep, because I'm somebody who's struggled forever with sleep issues and used to seek out the doctor's help. And now I realize I actually know more about what I need to do for my sleep patterns than the doctor does. So
yes. 100%. What were your sleep challenges, or are you still dealing with them?
I come from a family where we're just night owls. And my grandmother, who's 86, basically she naps. I think if I'm awake in the middle of the night, I can text her at 3 and 4 in the morning and get a response. So,
oh gosh. Yeah.
But I think what has helped me, and I think this is probably going to be true for many age groups, is just sticking the course and making sure whatever your routine is, that's consistent. And I think the hardest part is when you fall off a routine. Maybe you have a weekend where you have a later night, or an event for work, or whatever it may be, is not letting that totally throw you off, but getting back into doing the right things, and being patient with yourself. Maybe it will take a week, maybe it will take 2, but that's what I found is helpful to me, at least.
Oh, I agree. And if you go back and listen to the very beginning, you'll hear me say that one of the myths that people believe is that they're a night owl, right? So when you hear what I talk about, because that, I've been coaching for over a decade, and it's one of the things that people used to say, well, I'm a night owl. I've always been a night owl, and my mom's a night owl. So that's something that I've heard for a long time. But, when we think about it physiologically, as human beings, we're all created exactly the same way. We're all given the same, most of us are given the same body parts when we're born, the same, HPA axis, that determines a lot of what goes on metabolically. So, when we think we're a night owl, it really, a lot of that has to do with sometimes, and I didn't mention this, Debbie, can be an ancestral belief that's passed down to us that we don't sleep well at night, right? So just like there's ancestral traumas and familial genetic predispositions to specific things that are in our DNA, those things can also be in our thoughts and can be nurtured into us as we grow from the time that we're little, right? So like Jacob said, I can text my grandma at like 3 and like, hey, what's up? And grandma's like just watching an old rerun of Lawrence Welk, you know what I mean? Or whatever grandmas do at 3 in the morning. But in reality, it can be undone, right? It can be reversed and turned around. If that is something that we have taken on as our own, we can just as easily, well, not easily, but turn that around and say, what are the things that I can change so that I am not going to bed at, 12 at 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning type of thing. So Jacob, you may want to go back and listen from the start. It may have some helpful tips about resetting that circadian pattern for you.
I will check that out. I love that mindset. I come from a fitness and an education background that I think the self-talk that we have, that when we become conscious of what our self-talk is, I think changing that changes so many pathways neurologically.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And you know, the beautiful thing, I love that you said that, Jacob. It's a great point, because when we have neural pathways, you know, for specific thoughts, beliefs, ideas, and programs, those things are they're deeply, you know, grooved in our brain, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I always like to use the cart and horse example, that if a farmer goes out to the field every day with a horse and a cart, those grooves are really, they're well laid, right? Every day they take that same path to the field, you know. But what would happen if that farmer just even moved that cart over 10 feet to the right and started to create a new pattern, right? He might move faster. They might get out there faster. The horse might perk up and, you know, get new energy. Who knows, right? But it is possible. We just have to make that tiny little shift to the other direction, or a little bit to the side of our inborn beliefs and programs, to see if something could change for us. And, you know, I'm glad that it's nice to hear somebody that comes in and understands this, because so many people are rigid in their thinking. And when you're rigid in your thinking, those grooves get deeper, and then you can get even sunk more into your old bad habits. So great observation. Yeah.
Yeah, I love one of the things that you said was, when we wake up in the morning, whether we've had a great night of sleep or not, is to say, I had enough sleep to do what I'm doing today. And just that change in mindset, a shift in your attitude, that changes your whole day.
Yeah.
When you start the day out looking at things in a positive light versus what could be a negative light, that just makes the whole day better. It does help reduce your cortisol levels as you go through the day, when you're feeling more positive, and that shift just makes a huge difference. Just those simple messages you give to yourself. I was having a conversation about people say things to themselves they would never say to someone else. And if someone else is struggling, you're not going to be saying, well, why did you do this? Why did you do that? And we say those things to ourselves. And if we shift that, it makes a huge difference.
100%. You know, I love that, because one of the things I like to say when someone's beating themselves up about a habit or something that they think should be different or better, you know, I say, okay, hold on a second. Would you say that to your child? Would you say that to any child that's struggling with something? Because what happens when the bully comes in, and we all have a bully, right? The one that comes in and says, you shouldn't have stayed up until 11:30 watching Game of Thrones. You shouldn't have had that glass of wine at 9:30. You shouldn't have done these things, right? And speaking from my own behaviors, you know, instead of beating yourself up about it, you know, you say to yourself, hey, you know what? It happened because it did. You know, it happens once every couple of months. It's not a big deal. Let it go. So having that conversation with yourself is important for shifting those neural pathways as well, as opposed to getting stuck in blame and shame and guilt and all the things we tend to do to ourselves.
Yeah, we want a different path. We want to take that different path, not the ones with the buried deep ruts.
That's right. Absolutely.
So Carmen, what else? Is there anything else you'd like to share with us about sleep? I know we could, like you said, we could talk about this forever, but is there anything popping on in your mind that you want to emphasize before we?
Well, yeah, I'm in my bedroom right now. I thought I'd come in here for this, right? So my bedroom, this is my bedroom. I'm just going to share it with you guys, right? So one of the reasons I'm sharing that with you is you're going to see there's the end of my bed, and that's my dresser. There's something you don't see over my dresser and I've never had, and that is a what?
A television set.
Thank you. Yes. A television set. Okay. Yeah. So that is hands down, if there were anything I were to say to anybody in this moment, is to take the television and all electronics out of your room and unplug anything that has to do with Wi-Fi, anything that has to do with any EMFs or anything like that, because that will 100% affect your sleep every single time. So please take your electronics out of your room. Your room should be for sleep, sex, and reading, right? Those three things that are relaxing and conducive to a good night's rest. But then also consider, where is your Wi-Fi router? A Wi-Fi router should be moved as far away as possible from where anybody is sleeping, and if possible, turned off at night. You know, I have had clients, their sleep improved just from turning the Wi-Fi router off at night. So that is one thing you can do. And if you have teenagers in the house, I do. I've got a timer. It just came in the mail. I'm going to put a timer on that thing, right? So turn it off at least for that 6 hours that everyone should be in deep rest anyway. Yeah. Yeah,
that's a great idea. I know I had one of those watches that you were talking about that measures your sleep. And I know I did not sleep well with it on. And at first I thought, oh, it's just I'm not used to having something on my wrist at night. And then I started thinking, it's monitoring me. It's sending signals through me. That was probably, part of what was keeping me awake.
Yes. Oh, 100%. Yeah. I told
And,
my mom the same thing. I said, what is that on your arm? She's like, that's my Fitbit. I said, don't sleep in it. She's like, I don't. She knows having a daughter for a health coach can be a little challenging sometimes, I think.
Oh yeah, but I know that impacted me, and we don't have a TV in the bedroom, and it's great because also something else, if you have a TV in the bedroom, you might be curled up, squinched over in some kind of position that is uncomfortable, and that's not going to help your sleep either, even if you weren't the blue light and everything aside, but you're in a different position than you would be that's comfortable for sleep, and that can mess up things too, tighten
Yeah.
muscles and all those kinds of things. So
Yeah. And just let me touch on this real quick before we wrap up is it can be the smallest, tiniest little bitty light that can penetrate through your eyelids. I'm talking about like your smoke alarm. If you got a smoke alarm in your room and it's got the little green dot on it, if you put a piece of tape over that, like a white piece of tape, just something to cover it up, see what that does to your sleep, because all
Wow.
light penetrates through the eyelids. And that is what takes, again, the melatonin we've been talking about so much, and suppresses that melatonin and raises cortisol. So even if you have a TV in your room, you're like, well, it's never on. Well, have you ever opened your eyes, and once your eyes adapted to the dark, you can see that screen? Can you not? You can see the TV in the dark, that blue, there's something bluish, greenish gray that you can see that square. That can affect your eyes as well, your sleep as well. So just because it's not on doesn't mean it's not affecting you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Carmen, thank you.
Yeah.
From the bottom of my heart, thanks for sharing all this information, and appreciate it.
Yeah. Hope it's helpful to some people, and I hope everyone gets some better sleep tonight.
Absolutely. And if you want to contact Carmen, you can do this through the video. I'll have her information, and have a wonderful day and a great night's sleep.
Yes. Thanks, Debbie. Appreciate it. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.